All right, what's up, Notre Dame fans? Tyler Horka here. That's Kyle Kelly. We're with you from Blue and Gold Illustrated. We were on campus about 20, 30 minutes ago, and we actually started this video on campus, but thunder, lightning, heavy downpour rain. I haven't seen it rain that hard in South Bend probably all summer. So now we're with you from our office, but first Notre Dame fall camp practice day. They did get it in. It was actually really good weather throughout the day. It started getting a little cloudy, but I mean, they had no issues with the weather. It wasn't windy. Even had some cloud cover. So we'll get to what happened on the field today in South Bend. But beforehand, I mean, we got to talk about the biggest story in Notre Dame football right now, and that's strength and conditioning coach Matt Balis leaving the program after 6 seasons. Marcus Freeman had a press conference today after practice, and he kind of told all of the reporters that even he was caught off guard about this. So if you're a Notre Dame fan in the last 24 hours, you're thinking, what the heck happened? Marcus Freeman had that set of 24 hours earlier in the week. He met with Matt Balis on Monday, tried to talk him out of it even, is exactly what Marcus Freeman said. And Balis said that he has some personal matters right now to attend to in his life that would have prevented him from doing everything that he wants to do with these student athletes this season, you know, with Notre Dame football going into the 2023 season. So Matt Balis is out on his own accord, and Fred Hale, a guy who's been with the program for a couple years, really Matt Balis' right-hand man. I mean, every time you see Balis, you see Fred Hale. He was at Eastern Michigan for 7 years. Go to blueandgold.com. We have a really good story by our colleague Jack Sobel kind of explaining who Fred Hale is, but he kind of hit the ground running, took the reins, took the whistle today, and led these Notre Dame players through the stretching lines, you know, a good 15 to 20 minutes to get ready for practice. And, I mean, Matt Balis is a huge loss, but I think Fred Hale's going to pick up the slack and really do everything that Matt Balis was doing in the interim. He's a candidate to become the full-time strength and conditioning coach, but that's going to be decided probably after the season. So just any comments, anything you want to say about the Balis situation?
Yeah, for us Notre Dame football reporters, Fred Hale is not an unfamiliar face. Admittedly, I did not know exactly who he was until all this came about. I mean, I constantly see him. He's very involved with the program, especially at the beginning of practice, working out with the stretching lines and making sure these guys are getting loose and comfortable before practice actually kicks off. So definitely have seen him around. You know, he came in today and he led everything today. But like I said, you know, he's been around, so it couldn't have been too big of a change. And one thing that really stuck out about Marcus Freeman's press conference from today was he mentioned that as a head coach, you have contingency plans for a number of different things that could happen. And according to Marcus Freeman, we'll have to take him at his word that he had a contingency plan in place if Matt Balis were to leave the program. And I don't think it's rocket science to promote the number 2 guy to the number 1 position, especially with football season right around the corner. But it seems like a pretty seamless transition. Hale is the only guy, according to Freeman, on the strength and conditioning staff at Notre Dame that has full-time experience as a director of, you know, strength and conditioning at an FBS program that was at Eastern Michigan before his stop at Notre Dame. So it more or less should be a pretty good Band-Aid for the season, and we'll see if that sticks past the 2023 campaign.
Yeah, obviously these players were very connected to Balis. They felt emotional connections to the guy that had been coaching them for, again, half a dozen years. But Hale seems like a really good contingency plan, as you said and as Freeman said. So we'll get to some on-field stuff. Usually the first thing that I like to look at, especially on a day one of camp like this, is who's working out in the pit, which is the injured area. I mean, guys are riding the little bikes that, you know, you're pushing and you're pedaling, and then they're throwing medicine balls and whatnot. Only one guy today, and he wasn't throwing any medicine balls because that was KK Smith, the freshman wide receiver. His arm was actually in a sling. Marcus Freeman said he had shoulder surgery earlier this summer, so it's going to be a while before you see him on the field. But it was really good to see guys like Kevin Bauman back on the field, Eli Raridan, Jadarian Price. I mean, I'll start with my offensive observations right now. We'll get some defense as well, but Jadarian Price was taking most of the second-team reps from what I could see. Obviously, Audric Estime is your number 1 running back for Notre Dame. He's bulked up 6 pounds, by the way, if that was even possible. Last year listed at 227, right now listed at 233. He's a load. He was taking all the number 1 reps. Every time the second team offense came onto the field, though, I saw number 24, Jadarian Price, and he looked pretty good. Just kind of set the tone of the practice, set the scene. every single rep was taken in the red zone today. So mostly inside the 15-yard line. And they weren't wearing full pads. So they had their shells on, if you'd call them, helmets, jerseys, and pants. So there's no tackling, not a lot of physicality. You're not going to learn much about the running backs, offensive and defensive lines. But Audric Estime, number 1, Jadarian Price, number 2. I thought Devin Ford looked really good. Jeremiah Love, without those pads on, is a beast. Marcus Freeman said in his press conference today that the dude can absolutely fly. We'll see if track speed and workout speed translates to football speed. Freeman said that's what he's really looking forward to. But just overall from the offense, before I get to some of the other things, you can probably speak to it as well. Just a lot of really good-looking athletes. I mean, Eli Raridan tore his ACL 9 months ago, and I mean, his legs look as thick as ever, upper body toned and everything. Pretty good-looking group on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it is. I specifically focus on a lot of the newcomers, specifically the freshmen from my story on Blue and Gold, which will be out later this afternoon. Our colleague, Jack Sobel, he paid attention to a lot of the defense, but I sat along with Jack. So him and we kind of traded ideas throughout the whole practice and observations about the defensive side of the ball. And, I think the storyline really was today, the cornerbacks, both sophomore guys, Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Mickey. Morrison had several different pass deflections. I think even a couple interceptions from today's session in there. And if I'm not mistaken, Jack Sobel is actually going to be tracking Morrison's performance from today. So he'll have that up on blueandgold.com. But Jaden Mickey, very vocal. That's something that is not surprising. He is constantly flapping his jaw, to say the least. And to be honest, that's probably something that you want in your cornerback. Oh, yeah. You want a confident guy back there. And at some points, maybe a little bit too confident. He was going against Rico Flores in that red zone portion, which, as you mentioned, was primarily what we got to see today. And speaking of which, just clicked my mind, Holden Stays. Keep an eye out for him to be a big presence in the red zone this season for Notre Dame. If I had to count, I mean, at least on one hand, the amount of plays he made in the red zone. Seems like him and Sam Hartman are really starting to build a connection there. But I think all around, and Coach Freeman said it, a pretty solid first day overall. We expected to get about 25 periods for today's practice. It was only 17, but according to a Notre Dame staffer, 17 was actually the plan coming in today. And I think Coach Marcus Freeman said a little bit in his post-practice presser that they're trying to be a little bit smarter this year. There was so much of an emphasis last season to really hit the ground running. Week 1 against Ohio State. This season, they're trying to take a little bit more slower of a approach and realize it's a marathon, not a sprint. And kind of to that effect, only one guy, as you mentioned, on the IR, so to speak. A pretty healthy Notre Dame football team, at least on day 1 of camp, 10 or 2023.
And if you remember last year, obviously you cannot predict the weather. You have no control over it, but I think it was about 85, 90 degrees, sun beating down. Blake Fisher had to pull out of practice early.
Yep.
Zeke Carell had to pull out of practice early. So Freeman probably had that top of mind. It ended up being an overcast day and then eventually downpour rain later in the afternoon. But again, Freeman doesn't know that's going to happen. Just a couple more housekeeping tidbits. I mentioned Eli Raridan earlier. I actually did not see him get in on any competitive reps. So they probably are taking it easy with that knee. Kevin Bauman did get in some, though. He was running as a number 1 wide receiver. Holden Stays got number 1 wide receiver reps. Cooper Flanagan, the freshman. I know you were looking at the freshman. He got some reps as well. So you're going to see a number 87. It's not going to be Michael Mayer, but it's going to be Cooper Flanagan. I thought he looked pretty good. And we can't end this video without talking some quarterbacks. I'll let you give your assessment on those guys. I thought both looked pretty good. Again, for Sam Hartman, when you're working red zone only, and he's a pretty good red zone quarterback. If you go back to watch him at Wake Forest, he made a lot of plays. But I think he gets into a rhythm when he's able to make that deep pass. You saw it in the Blue Gold game. When he made that deep pass early to Jaden Thomas, it kind of got him going. I think it was a 46-yard gain, and then he looked flawless throughout the rest of that game. You didn't have that today, so he did make some mistakes. His first throw of the day, and it was only on one-on-ones, was an interception by Xavier Watts. Hartman was looking for Chris Tyree on a little out route toward the right sideline. Watts knew the route, jumped the pass, and intercepted it. So you had some good and bad with both guys. Steve Angeli, I thought, looked really good. I asked Marcus Freeman about him. He says that guy is, a bona fide quarterback number 2 right now. If Sam Hartman had to leave a game for whatever reason, they feel really good about putting Steve Angeli in there. And even Kenny Minchey at some point this year will probably be on that level. So I thought Angeli made some nice passes, touchdown receptions that come to mind. Chris Salerno made a really nice catch in the corner of the end zone. I think Jabron Payne caught a touchdown pass. Chris Tyree might have had 2. He's a guy to keep an eye on. In the spring, he wasn't really repping as a number 1. You had Jaden Thomas, Deion Colsey, and Tobias Merriweather as your starters in the spring. Chris Tyree pretty much took every single starter snap today, and he was rewarded with a couple touchdown catches. So he's a guy to monitor. And then I think Tobias Merriweather had a touchdown catch. And then Braylon James, before they got into competitive periods, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, he was making some toe tappers just in routes on air, and I was like, okay, maybe this is a Braylon James day. And then he ends up, it's going to be in our notes. Look for it on the observations that we put on blueandgold.com. I can't remember the defensive back that he made a catch over, but it would have made the segment of You Got Mossed. We'll just say that about Braylon James. So I thought the quarterbacks looked pretty good in a limited viewing opportunity, and the wide receivers were making plays in the red zone, and so were the defensive backs, like you said, with some interceptions. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. Again, only 17 periods, so there's only so much you can glean from that. But just any closing remarks that you have about what we saw today?
I'm really glad that you mentioned Steve Angeli, because I thought that the leap he's made from year 1 to year 2 is really noticeable. He just has a more confident command of the offense, and I think that the game has probably slowed down for him. That's I think a big thing for a quarterback when you're processing things, and obviously a new offensive coordinator, so to speak, with Jared Parker taking over for Tommy Rees, but really not expecting a lot of changes with that offense. I even remember hearing some of the same signal calls from last season, and so pretty seamless transition from that aspect. Like you said, Hartman, solid day. We're not going to say he lit the world on fire, but I think there was a lot to like. And one more thought on the quarterbacks, Kenny Minchey running with the 3s, pretty great day, or not great, but a respectable day overall for him as well. You can see he has chemistry with a lot of those freshmen, Braylon James being the one. I think that, I know Rico Flores and Jaden Greathouse have been running a lot with the 2s, getting more reps with Steve Angeli. Braylon James has been a little bit on a slow track. He's a little bit more of a developmental prospect, but let me tell you, I can already see the jump he made from spring to summer. It's pretty impressive already. But in turn of Flores and Greathouse running with the 2s, Minchey's built up a rapport with Braylon James, and we really saw that today. I think that you also saw that Kenny Minchey had a little bit of a disconnect with Cooper Flanagan, and right there, Cooper's a summer enrollee, didn't really have a chance to camp with Minchey in the spring, so I think that's to be expected. Nothing concerning there. This is one of, I think, about 15 practices, give or take, so there's going to be a lot more takeaways from now and until the end of August.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to come from us on blueandgold.com and on YouTube as well, obviously. So stick with us throughout the next month. We're exactly 1 month away from August 26th as we record this on July 26th. So if you're looking for all Notre Dame football content leading up to that opener in Dublin, Ireland against Navy, then keep it right here. Until next time, Tyler Horka, Kyle Kelly.